Thanks to the nerf to linears, which reigned champion for a long time, rocket launchers are now the go-to for boss damage, and we've seen quite a few great options in the recent seasons for rockets. So let's go over all of them and choose which ones to chase. There are currently 4 unique rocket frames. Adaptive, which has a bonus of 10% damage, but is the most average and doesn't excel at any one stat. Precision, this frame has a lowered 10% damage, but it can track to trade that lowered damage. Aggressive, a bonus of 10% damage. These frames typically have a high velocity and reload with a low blast radius and handling, so typically for boss damage phases, aggressives are preferred personally. High impact, considered baseline for damage, high impacts have high blast radiuses and handling with low velocity. Sub-Zero Salvo. Starting off the list with the Arc Precision frame from Europa is nothing great. It's clearly meant for ad clear, but why would you be using a precision frame for that? It's meant to track single targets, so it's better to use them on bosses, not large groups of enemies. With perks like Ambitious in the left column and Chain Reaction, Cluster Bomb and Unrelenting, this rocket clearly isn't made for damage. Shining Sphere. From one arc rocket to another, this adaptive is from the Iron Banner, and unfortunately its perk set really sucks. No damage perk in the right column. In fact, all of the perks in the right column should be found in the left column. It's one of the weirdest perk sets on any weapon still in the game. Personally, I'd never use this one. Ascendancy. This sort of precision is probably the best precision in the game. It has both a damage roll and an ad clear roll, with both being pretty great examples of each. The damage perks of Impulse Amplifier to increase velocity and reload speed, and Explosive Light to deal a bonus 25% damage per shot, up to 6 times for each orb of power picked up. Then for ad clear, Ambitious and Chain Reaction are pretty stellar, though I still wouldn't suggest using a rocket for ad clear. Cold Comfort. Okay, I love this rocket. It's my favourite in the game, possibly the entire history of Destiny. Cold Comfort is a status aggressive frame from the Ghost of the Deep Dungeon, and has some of the best perks in the game, as well as the best frame for boss damage. For the God roll, I'd go with Envious Assassin and Bait and Switch, for an easy 4 in the mag with a 35% damage buff. Plus with the Origin trait, you can have an extra round in the mag thanks to its free reload following a revive or finisher. Of course, Tracking Module or Impulse Amplifier with Explosive Light or Chill Clip would work great on this rocket too, but if you get the God roll, I don't think you'd be needing anything else from this one. Tomorrow's Answer. The first Void and the first High Impact on this list, Tomorrow's Answer is by no means a bad option, with autoloading or tracking in the left column, with lasting impression in the right column. This rocket would be a safe choice if it wasn't for 2 things. 1. You can't get this anymore. 2. It's from Trials, and for such an endgame loot source, this really isn't appropriate to be a reward from it. Bad Omens. From one Void rocket to the other, Bad Omens is an aggressive frame with nothing interesting to offer. The best it's got is Kill Clip, and if you're using Kill Clip on a rocket launcher, then you shouldn't be. Braytech Osprey. This is what all Void rockets should aim to be in my eyes. Braytech is the best Void option in the game right now. Envious with Lasting is a great roll for damage. I think Cluster Bomb in the left column could also be a great bump to damage, but I've not got that specific roll, so I can't say for sure. Also has the most unique perk set of Pulse Monitor in the left column, meaning that as long as you damage yourself a bit with the rocket whilst in a well, you can fire through all of your reserves since Pulse will reload it for you. Apex Predator. This rocket is competing with Cold Comfort for the best option right now. They both have Bait and Switch as their right column ideal perk, but Apex is Reconstruction in the left column, meaning it's actually better used for players who aren't necessarily ad clearing during a boss phase. Really, it comes down to a matter of preference. Both frames have a bonus 10% damage, both have Bait and Switch. Reconstruction can only load an additional 2 rounds on the mag, whilst Envious can have an extra 3 with another thanks to the Origin perk, but you have to be killing things. So really it comes down to the player. The Hothead. What used to be the top dog for rockets, Hothead is an arc adaptive that's been carrying the name of rocket launchers for a long time. With Demo, Autoloading or Tracking in the left column, and Explosive Light and Lasting Impression, though realistically you'll want to use Explosive Light since it gives it the same damage bump with an instant explosion rather than a delayed one. Hothead is still a great free to play option for all players. Blowout. Blowout is legitimately the same as Hothead, with way more perks to pick from and slightly worse stats. If you somehow don't have the Vanguard engrams to focus on Hothead, but you have loads of Crucible engrams, then feel free to focus for this one. Hezen Vengeance. Another power crept top choice. Hezen used to be my go-to for rockets. Overflow in the left column is still a unique perk on rockets to this day, meaning that if during a damage phase there's plenty of heavy or special ammo around and you can move freely, then you can keep up damage a lot quicker than most heavies. In the right column, you can only really use Lasting Impression though, which isn't a bad option, it just gets a bit boring after a while when that's the best option on most rockets. Bump of the Night. Another power crept weapon. Bump of the Night is a status aggressive frame, just like Cold Comfort, except Bump isn't as standout as Comfort. With its standout perks being Tracking or Autoloading with Chill Clip or Frenzy, there are better rockets that are easier to get. Roar of the Bear. This solar high impact is as average as it gets in my eyes, a tracking, lasting rocket with not much else to use when it comes to damage. Royal Entry, the go-to starter rocket. This void precision frame is best for new lights who haven't got much else for choice. It's super easy to acquire just from running strikes, and you can even focus it with Zavala. With autoloading or field prep in the left column, with lasting in the right column, on paper it sounds like a great pick. But the issues come from its frame, coming with the minus 10% damage from precision frames. But besides that, it's a real good pick. Code Duello. Now this is taking me back. The best rocket pick until Heathen Vengeance took over the following season. This season of the Chosen Rocket is still pretty good. Autoloading with field prep with lasting impression. Again, it's a pretty standard perk set, but with the frame being a high impact, it doesn't have the minus 10% from precision like Royal Entry. The biggest downside is that Duello is only dropping from Deaths of Eternity at this point. Semiotician. The first strand rocket on this list, Semiotician is the most standard rocket in the game, with only field prep and explosive light to its name. I don't think I can find any unique use for this rocket, but it is good for new players. Heretic. Another aged rocket, Heretic isn't all that special. Impulse Lasting. That's the one roll I can recommend. Red Herring. The only benefit this Void rocket has is the fact it's craftable. Tracking and lasting with its adaptive frame mean it can deal more damage than its peers, but realistically you're better off just using a different rocket. Grounding Duologue. Annoyingly, this strand rocket has got some pretty good perks on it, like Demo, Field Prep and Autoloading in the left column, with add clear perks in the right, like Hatchling, One for All and Chain Reaction. The two worst things about this rocket are its FOMO. Since it's only once a year you can grab this, and then it has no damage perks for its damage phases, so realistically it's stuck being an add clear rocket, which just isn't ideal. Palmyra B. When Witch Queen came out, everyone was using Palmyra since Precisions didn't have the lowered damage value, plus the perks are pretty great. Autoloading with Lasting, Chill Clip or Explosive Light. Even with the minus 10% damage, Palmyra is still a great choice thanks to its perks, its ease to acquire. Hell, I'd still recommend this to nearly everyone who doesn't have it, and even then, probably people who still do. Husgal. Again, a kill clip damage rocket. Just not ideal. I think I hate this one. Sleepless. Autoloading and Vorpal on this rocket make it another pretty good starter rocket for new lights. Besides that, it's not all that special. Finally, we've gone over all of them. Even though the end of the list became boring, new light rockets, a lot of rockets on this list are still great. I'd recommend most of them for most bosses in the game right now. So hopefully, you'll enjoy some of my top picks as much as I do.